Hi, Edwina. It's good to see you. Really glad to welcome you back to beautiful, bright, and sunny Birmingham, just in time. For people who don't know you, I thought it'd be nice if you could just briefly kind of introduce yourself, say who you are, what you're doing currently, your profession, and where you've been for the past 9 months. And yeah.
Hi everyone, my name's Edwina. For those who don't know me, I've been away from BCEC for the last 9 months. I work as a doctor, but for the last 9 months, I've basically taken a break out of work, and God called me to YWAM in Hawaii. So I was there for 6 months, for about 3 months actually, and then after that we went out and did missions in Thailand and also Myanmar. And after that 6 months, I felt that God was actually calling me to go back home and spend time with family when the lockdown was happening. So I was in Malaysia after as well for 3 months, and now I'm back in Birmingham.
So that's pretty amazing. I mean, you're a doctor, you joined YWAM, you're in Myanmar, you went back home, and so all these things have kind of happened. And just to bring people to speed, why did you decide to take some time off from your professional career and join YWAM?
Yeah, this probably went back to beginning of last year. Yeah, where I felt God kind of just, whilst I was at church once, God just put it in me, like just to say like, what if you just put aside everything? I had probably just over a year left of my training, but God was just like, could you actually just put down all of this and just come and seek me? I literally had like palpitation, and I was like really struggling and asking God, really, is this what you want me to do? And after many weeks of struggling, I kind of finally accepted, and I was like, okay, fine, God, I will trust you. And then that's how then I decided to just actually, take this step of faith. And then I was like, oh, where should I go? And it was actually thanks to Leslie. I'm not sure if you guys know her. She works as a missionary. And she was the one who actually recommended YWAM Kona to me. And that's where I actually went. Yeah.
That's really amazing. You're not like a rash and an impulsive person who just jumps into things like this, right? Like this would be quite a challenging decision to make, right?
Yeah, it took, so like, I think personally, it did take like really weeks and months of me, coming to terms that, I was going to leave my comfort zone. And then I guess it didn't help, like, people at work were really helpful and was like, you've only got 1 more year left of your training. Why don't you just finish your training and then you can do whatever you want after. So there was that bit of career that I had to think about as well. And then thinking also like, having a place here as well. I was like, what's going to how am I going to sort out the mortgage and, how to, and I was like, how do I leave all this behind to just take time out? And then even trying to get approval initially from work, from what we call the deanery to let me take time out was also initially a struggle as well. But I guess when God really wants you to do something, he actually does provide, and he actually just paved the way for me for all this to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing because I remember you sharing the doors not just open, but I guess the other part was it became very clear in your life that this was, if you don't do this, it's wrong, right? Like you've got to make these steps and go out there and really was for you to really develop, just to deepen your relationship with God. Was that the main heart of this?
Yeah, I think that was my main aim. Was, I think, as I shared before with a few people, was I think after having gone out for a few mission trips, the one challenge I had was I was like, I want to spend more time with God. And I was like, the best way to do that was by reading the Bible. And I tried initially, if I have to get ready for work by like, say, by 6 o'clock. I was like, okay, you know what? Wake up an hour earlier to try and read the Bible and spend time with God. But as much as I tried it, I think it was a struggle, knowing that, I had a time constraint, and because I know I'm a morning person, so I was trying to squeeze everything in before I go to work. And it was just that struggle of trying to balance between saying, okay, I put God as a priority, I want to spend more time with him, but then also knowing that I actually will, and I have that limited time because I need to get ready for work. And I think during this time out, it really gave me time to just focus on, like, not have to worry about work, not worry about whatever is left behind, but just to focus on just that relationship with God and getting to know him more.
That's really precious. And I guess I'd like to hear a little bit about that. So going out there with that kind of perspective, do you feel like your time with YWAM and also serving God out there, do you feel like what are some things that God spoke to you into your life that really did help deepen your relationship with him?
Yeah, so I think, well, the one thing now thinking back, I was in a dorm with like 8 to 10 girls. So would I want to go back and stay in a dorm? Maybe not, but it was a good time then because funnily enough, some of the younger girls actually wanted lights out by 9-10 o'clock at night. So it actually meant that, so there was another girl and another girl who's older than me. So we were just like, okay, fine, we'll sleep early, and then we'll actually wake up early in the morning to actually do our quiet time, whilst the rest of the younger girls were actually using their phone and sleeping late at night anyway. But it didn't bother us. But yeah, so what would happen is between me and this other girl was we would actually encourage one another to wake up in the morning. So though classes probably would start at 8 o'clock, we tried to get up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning so that we actually, and in the midst of the quietness, we could actually have our own separate quiet time with God. And if one person woke up and so the other person wasn't awake yet, we would actually wake the other person up so that we would actually both go and do our quiet time just at different places together. And I think, like you said, that was just one thing which was really precious to me because it just meant that I could actually spend time in his word. And instead of just always saying, I want to hear from God, I want to hear from God, that was the one time where I realized that, reading the Bible was actually the best way to hear from him. I think even the first week I was there, initially I was questioning and asking like, oh, I'm with a bunch of younger people, aside from, like you say, the other girl who I mentioned who was slightly older than me. I was asking God, I said, really, is this where you want me to be? And the first week itself, I remember he was then telling me, when people are asking, oh, where do you feel like, you are called to? And even the first week when the speaker was speaking, she actually gave me a word and said it was like, she said convergence of nations. And I was just like, what does that actually mean? She said it feels like you would actually bring people together. And then gradually, as I was like, even throughout that session, as I was asking God what it meant, I felt that he was actually saying, I placed you in your workplace, the healthcare professionals, for a reason, and that is where I want you to actually continue to shine, and that is where you will continue to be my salt and light. So I think that itself was really the first reassurance for me that, yes, though I take time out, this was where he will be putting me back into once he is done with me.
Mm-hmm. That's both. It's pretty awesome, right? Because it's really affirming both your place and your where God's put you in your workplace now, and also that time out is just getting that clear hearing from God in that place with him. Are there other things that God spoke into your life while you were out there? Or
yeah, there's so many things. I think the one thing definitely was, I think on a personal level, was this one time where early in the morning, God basically just reminded me that I was his bride. And I guess I was just at that point where people were talking about relationships and talking about all their past experiences and stuff, and I was asking God, then I'm like, and then whilst you're out there as well, inevitably people will ask you, oh, are you out there to find a guy? And I was just asking God, I was like, what's with all this, where you've always said to just wait for that person, but I'm like, when is this person going to turn up? What do I need to do? And then actually he just reminded me, like, put aside all these things, the first thing I want to remind you is that you are actually my bride. I'm the bride of Christ. And I was just about to go for a run then, and then it was just this deviation. I decided to just sit down, and when he just reminded me of all this, I just started crying just by the heart. And then, but it was just a very, in a way, it was a very touching moment, because that kind of just changed my perspective of how I saw God. Instead of just seeing him as like, someone I pray to and be like, oh, dear Heavenly Father, or dear God, do this for me. I suddenly felt like if I'm actually someone that is so loved by him, the conversations that I can have with him after was more of just like a best friend level, or like with someone that you love, where there is no boundaries at all. And I think it just made me wanted to work more on this relationship with him. Like, in the past, where I would, whenever there was something that I needed an answer to, yes, we always say theoretically that, we should go to God and ask for an answer. But realistically, because you feel that you can't hear from God, you would then go to someone who can speak to you physically, i.e., be it your husband, your boyfriend, or your parents. But then, because now I realized that there is this relationship between me and him, and instead of having to go to these other people before them, I should actually be asking him. And it was just a journey. It wasn't like an easy journey, but then it was just a journey where then I started realizing, I've got this question. Maybe I should ask God what he thinks of it. And, be it that day, whether he replies me or whether he replies me the next day, or, whenever. But then I kind of felt like I was starting to work on this relationship with him, and then also learning not just to speak to him, but also to hear back from him.
Yeah, I mean, it's so beautiful to hear you say that, because I think for a lot of us, when we think about God, we just think of him as someone distant, or someone that we have to serve in some way. But everything about the Bible paints this beautiful picture of God who is so relational, who desires to not just us to know him, but to be with him, to share with him. All the words he uses, children, families, sons and daughters, is so beautiful. And for him to speak into your life, like I know what that's like, right? When it's not just like he said, oh yeah, you're my bride. It's like you're overwhelmed with this amazing love of God that's saying not just you're my bride, but I love you, right? Like there's this adoration that just pours out from God that is so precious. It's one of those things that you end up on your spiritual timelines that no one can take away, because it's like, this was so instrumental to my development. I'm telling people, actually, if you want to talk more to Edwina, be sure to drop her a line. But I want to know, coming back. Okay, so I mean, you got to spend all this time with God out there, but now you're coming back here. How are you gonna keep this relationship with him going, even now that you're back and you're gonna have to go to work and all these things?
That's a very good question. I'm asking myself that too. I think this 2 weeks of being in quarantine, I kind of tried to make myself fast and pray and ask God, like, how should I proceed? Like, being aware that, once I get back to work, yes, things can be busy. But I think that even that 6 months out there, making sure, being intentional with God and making sure I had that quiet time. And I think the conviction that has set in me that reading the Bible is just so important, that is definitely something I want to carry on forward. Even like now, whilst during this period of quarantine, I'm trying to wake up like at a realistic time in the morning to make sure that I can still do quiet time and then also be able to get to work in time. Because like I said, being a morning person, if you ask me to read the Bible at night, I can guarantee you that I'll end up falling asleep whilst reading the Bible. So I know the best time to catch me is probably in the morning. So I think, just trying to do that ultimately. And I think as my friend sort of say, is being intentional with God about it is something that I know I definitely want to try and do. I think the other thing is probably like being in a group, in a community of people who can encourage one another. So like joining back into life groups as well, because definitely, in the past when I've been at BCEC, I know there were times when life just seemed difficult, when work just seemed so difficult. And in fact, it is actually like brothers and sisters in Christ who actually just encourages you to carry on. And, you know, though they may not be of the same healthcare profession, you know, them praying over you, that was definitely, those were times where sort of I managed to get through it because of them.
It is very easy. And I think so much about life tries to teach us to just be independent, just to do it ourselves. And it's very easy to just think, oh, no one's going to understand me. Oh, I don't have time to life group. I don't want to explain. But actually, you're right. It's so important. It's the same as like you and your friend waking up and say, hey, wake up. Let's go spend some time with God. Just things like that really helps to keep things on track. And because there's so much noise and busyness here in life, you know, if you're not having that kind of community, it's very easy to forget that actually, you know, Jesus is here with all of us and having that life. Thanks very much, Edwina, for taking some time and sharing with us. And it's really great to hear. Hopefully we can hear more from you. I might have to ask you again for some more details about YWAM, get some photos or something like that along the way. But just this first welcome back, great to have you join us. And I hope everyone's been blessed by this as well. So thanks a lot.